Once upon a time, in a town where the sky always looked like it was on the edge of twilight, there lived a girl who believed in magic. Not the kind with wands or sparkles, but the quiet kind. The kind whispered into the moon. The kind written in journals. The kind that could pull love into your life if you just asked the universe the right way. Her name was Lira, and Lira had been asking. Every night. In a small apartment that smelled of sandalwood and dried roses, she sat beneath a window that caught just enough moonlight. Her fingers were ink-stained, her eyes soft with hope. And there, in a lavender leather notebook worn from use, she wrote the same 3 sentences again and again. I want love. I want to be chosen. I want someone who sees me. Not for a month, not for a year, but for as long as she could remember needing to feel wanted. To outsiders, it was journaling. To Lira, it was sacred. She lit candles, placed rose quartz nearby, sometimes even burned sage, all the rituals she read about in blogs and heard whispered by spiritual friends. It was her version of casting a spell, a prayer dressed as repetition. She believed that if she just said it enough times, if she poured her longing into the universe like a steady river, the universe would answer. But every night, the page filled, and every morning, her bed was still empty. Lira didn't stop at journaling. No, she dove headfirst into the world of manifestation, like a woman building her own rescue boat out of moonlight and mantras. She read every book, watched every video. She made vision boards so detailed they looked like crime scene maps for love. A house in the forest, a man with warm eyes, a dog maybe. Sunday mornings filled with pancakes and long, sleepy kisses. She wrote it all in future tense. I am loved. I am safe. He is already on his way. She even wrote letters to him, the him she hadn't met yet, sealing them with rose oil and hiding them in a carved wooden box under her bed. She charged crystals under the full moon, whispered his name into her pillow, even though she didn't know it yet. She left space in her closet, cooked for 2, bought an extra toothbrush. Because someone, somewhere had said, act like he's already here and he'll come. And so Lira did. But what no one tells you is this. You can do everything right and still feel like you're shouting into the void. Because Lira was trying to manifest love while quietly drowning in loneliness. She wasn't manifesting a partner. She was manifesting a savior. And deep down, the universe, as patient and exact as it is, doesn't send love when your energy says, please rescue me. After months of rituals, visualizations, and whispered affirmations, Lira began to notice a hollow echo where hope used to live. It didn't come crashing down. It wasn't some grand heartbreak or cosmic thunderbolt. It was quieter than that. A kind of tiredness that seeped into her bones. A feeling that maybe she was the only one listening. She would light her candles and stare at the flickering flame, but her chest felt heavy. The words she once wrote with devotion now spilled onto the page like obligation. I want love, I want to be chosen, I want someone who sees me. But even as the ink dried, she didn't believe it would change anything. She started skipping her moon rituals. Her crystals gathered dust, and the letters, those tender, fragrant confessions to a man who didn't exist, stayed buried under her bed, unopened, unread. She still smiled at strangers, still pretended her heart wasn't sinking, but in the quiet moments, In the silence between the affirmations, she wondered if maybe love just wasn't meant for her. Maybe some souls were born to give more than they ever received. And the worst part, she didn't feel angry at the universe. She felt forgotten. It happened on a full moon night, the kind of night where the sky glows with a silver clarity that feels almost too honest. Lira sat by the window watching the moon rise slow and unbothered above the rooftops. She hadn't planned to do a ritual. She didn't even light a candle. She just sat there, knees to chest, wrapped in an old sweater, and let the moonlight soak into her skin like cold water. Something inside her, the part that had been patient, faithful, quiet, cracked. She whispered into the dark, "Universe, what am I doing wrong?" Her voice barely made a sound, but in her chest, it thundered. And that's when it happened. No lightning, no whisper in her ear, no glowing sign or falling star, just a sudden awareness. A shift in the air, like the moment between inhale and exhale when the world tilts just slightly. And then she saw it. Not a person, not a promise, but a mirror, the one across the room, reflecting her, just as she was. Hair messy, eyes tired, heart cracked open, and in that instant, something ancient and electric passed between her and her own reflection. Not magic, not madness, but truth. The kind of truth you only hear when the world goes completely still. At first, Lira didn't understand what she was supposed to see. It was just her sitting there, a girl who lit 1,000 candles for someone else's arrival, not realizing that the one who needed to arrive was already in the room. But as she stared into her own eyes, something stirred. A flicker of recognition, not of who she was, but of who she'd forgotten she was. She wasn't the girl begging the universe. She wasn't the empty space waiting to be filled. She was the whole sky that held the moon, the storm and the shelter, the ache and the answer. In the mirror, she saw every version of herself, the hopeful girl who wrote love letters to a stranger, the tired woman who kept loving, even when it hurt, the soul that had always believed in magic, even when it didn't arrive on time. And for the first time, she didn't flinch. She didn't look away. She whispered one more thing to the moon, not a plea, not a question, but a promise. I'll stop waiting for someone to see me. I see myself now. And the moment she said it, something inside her exhaled. Not a dramatic release, but a soft, steady letting go of the need to be chosen. And the belief that love had to come from outside. Because maybe the universe wasn't ignoring her. Maybe it was waiting for her to come home. In the days that followed, nothing changed. And everything changed. Lira still walked the same streets. She still brewed her morning tea, opened her curtains, journaled her thoughts. But now she wasn't journaling to summon a stranger. She was writing to herself, checking in, listening, noticing. The space on her bed didn't feel empty anymore. It felt spacious. The silence in the room stopped sounding like loneliness. It began to hum with presence. She didn't stop dreaming of love, but now the vision had changed. It wasn't someone to rescue her from herself. It was someone who would find her already whole. And in that shift, that subtle, sacred shift, Lira began to attract different things. Not because the universe had finally heard her, but because she had finally heard herself. The kind of love that she had begged for under moonlit skies, she was now radiating without even trying. Because the magnet wasn't the rituals, it was her alignment. It was subtle at first. A barista remembering her name, a stranger holding the door and actually seeing her, not just looking, but noticing. People began speaking to her with softness, as if they could feel she'd softened toward herself. Her friendships deepened. Old conversations that once felt performative now flowed with ease. She stopped saying yes to things that drained her, and miraculously, space opened up. Space for better things. Even her mirror looked different. Same face, same eyes, but the gaze looking back at her had changed. There was power in it now. Not arrogance, not ego, peace. It was as if the world had finally tilted in her favor, when in truth, it had always been tilted in her direction. She had just been facing the wrong way. And without even realizing it, Lira had become the very thing she was chasing. She was love. She was the presence. She was the arrival she had been waiting for. The universe hadn't withheld anything from her. It had simply waited, patiently, for her to meet herself. One evening, weeks after her quiet rebirth, Lira was at a bookstore she rarely visited. Not for any special reason. She was just drawn in by a window display that said, "Read something that reminds you of yourself." She smiled at the irony. She had spent so long searching for things outside herself to feel seen. Now she could find pieces of herself in everything. While flipping through a worn paperback on the power of intention, someone beside her reached for the same title. Their fingers brushed. He laughed. She didn't. Not because she was cold or unkind, but because for the first time in a long time, she wasn't trying to be chosen. She was simply present. They exchanged small talk. He asked what she was reading. She answered without filtering herself. It was easy. It was warm. It didn't feel like fate crashing in. It felt like resonance. And as he asked if she'd like to grab coffee sometime, Lira noticed something strange. Her heart didn't leap. It didn't panic. It didn't scream, "This is it," like it once might have. It just smiled, quietly. Because love, she realized, doesn't always arrive with fireworks. Sometimes it walks in gently, when you've stopped begging for it and started embodying it. That night, lying in bed with the book still open on her chest and a soft smile lingering on her lips, Lira whispered a question she used to ask the stars. Why did it take so long? But this time, the answer came from within. It didn't take long. It took exactly as long as she needed to come back to herself. She had always thought manifestation meant calling something in, drawing it toward you with desire, vision boards, rituals. But now she understood real manifestation isn't about magnetizing what's missing. It's about removing the parts of you that believe you're unworthy of receiving. It's not about chasing.
It's about clearing, not about fixing, but remembering. The universe didn't deliver late. It delivered when she matched its frequency, not of desperation, but of truth. She hadn't called love in. She had cleared the path for it by becoming someone who no longer looked for completion because she'd already arrived. And in that moment, everything aligned, not perfectly, but peacefully. Because the greatest love story she had ever written was the one where she chose herself first. She no longer scripted love letters to the unknown. She wrote to herself now. Affirmations on the mirror, notes tucked into books, reminders in her phone that read, "You are already everything you seek." She didn't stop believing in magic. She just realized it was never in the candles or the charts or the rituals. It was in her. The way she chose to stay soft in a world that had hardened her. The way she loved without demand. The way she showed up again and again, even when no one was watching. The universe had answered her prayers, not with a perfect partner, not with grand gestures, but with a mirror, and the invitation to fall in love with what she saw. And maybe, just maybe, that was the real love story all along. Not the one where someone finds you, but the one where you finally find yourself and decide that you were never lost to begin with.
And maybe that's the kind of magic we forget exists. Not the spell that changes the world outside you, but the one that finally lets you see the beauty within. So now I wonder, have you been searching for something that's already inside you? If this story stirred something in you, stay with us here at Inner Sky Radio, where every tale is a quiet whisper to your soul, and every word is an echo of the light you carry. Like, share, and subscribe, because sometimes all it takes is one story to come home to yourself.